How's it going? David Comic Book Investments. So, Eternals just hit $71 million opening weekend domestically. So that's just North America. And that was okay. I mean, they were expecting a little higher. I think they're expecting around 80 million. Um, that's where they're expecting 75 to 80, so slightly under what they were expecting. So that's not terrible. It's not as good as recent superhero films such as Venom 2 opened at 90 million. Black Widow opened at 80 million, even though Black Widow also was released the same time on Disney Plus for, I think it was like $20 or something like that. And then Shang-Chi opened for 75 million. So pretty much lower than all the recent superhero films. Now, is that bad? I don't think so, because if you look back here at other Marvel firsts, so you have to compare it to other firsts, right? So like the first movie. So if we look at, Venom, it had opening of 90 million, Black Widow 80 million, like I said. But then if you look at Captain Marvel, that was a first, right? Her first movie. That had 153 million. Much, much higher, but that was pretty high. But if you look at something like Ant-Man, a first Ant-Man, it had 57 million, not very much. Doctor Strange was higher at 85 million. Thor 1 at 65 million, so lower. And then the first Captain America was at 65 million, so a little lower as well. So, taking into consideration of that, it's not as bad. But then you have to look at everything, right? One of the differences, these first movie had 140 million, 150 million, 165, 130 million dollar budget, 160. So a much lower budget than Eternals, which had 200 million. So that was quite a bit. That's up there with like Avengers, like Captain Marvel 160, Shang-Chi, I don't know what it is. It doesn't say here. Let's see. Black Widows doesn't say here. They don't say that. But they're probably in the same like 110 to 140 million budget. So Eternals was definitely much, much higher. So you have to factor in that. Okay. Also, another thing you have to factor in is longevity. So how is this opening weekend? You're going to get all the super fans like me that are going to go see everything Marvel. But can you get the normal people? And if this once the super fans go and they're like, it was okay, because some people will watch. I had a friend who watched Avengers like 4 or 5 times in theaters. If you aren't a super fan, or I mean, if you are a super fan and you don't really like it, you're probably not going to watch as much or go with your friends, things like that. So you have to take that in consideration. So, for example, Shang-Chi opened at 75 million and ended up getting 425. Right? That was less. Thor had a less opening and ended up getting more money in the end. Captain, look at the difference. Like these both movies had about the same opening, but one ended up at 370 and this one ended up at 450. So, I mean, this one ended up 677 at an $85 million budget or opening, which was right around this, and it was almost double. So it really depends the longevity of the movie, and that comes down to the movie itself. So right now, I think this is good for the movie. And why am I talking about what's good and what's bad? And you probably don't even care about these numbers. So it all comes down to money if they're going to make a second one. And it all comes down to money if they are going to take some of these characters and put them in more of the MCU movies, right? And so that's what it all comes down to. Money, money, money. It's pretty much what makes the world turn to these corporations. So if this weekend, it gets 71 million domestically, worldwide, its total is now 161. If it continues to do okay, and has maybe a 50% drop the second weekend, which is like normal, then there's a very good chance you're going to make a number two. But if by the second and third weekend, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't make that much money in the end, maybe this ends up being at like domestically like under 200 million, Well, your budget is 200 million, right? And then you double that budget, and that pays for ads, like marketing. So in order to break even on this movie, they have to get $400 million. And on top of that, you'll see these numbers, right? The 71 million. That's how much it brought in. The way each studio is different how they deal with theaters, but sometimes it's like the first 2 weekends is 100% goes to the studio, so like Marvel or Disney. And then weekend 3, it's like a 50-50 split. So half goes to the theater, half goes to Disney. And everyone's different. Sometimes it's a 50-50 split from the get-go. So even if this brings in, 400 million, and they're like, oh, okay, they broke even on the movie, they have to still split that with the theater. So each studio has a different split, so I couldn't even tell you what Disney's is. So you have to take that into consideration. So in order for them to see this as break even, slightly profitable, you probably need to see on a budget this size, you're probably going to need to see close to 600,000 or 600,000, 600 million. That's what you're going to need to see them see is like, okay, this is good. This is making money. And, depending if their marketing budget was equal to that. I mean, Justice League's marketing budget was like almost 1.5 times the size of the movie production budget. So that's what you got to think about. So, and why do I keep saying this? Well, in terms of comic books, if they make a number 2, that's only going to help comic books and their values go up. If it bombs and it doesn't make money and then they're done, all those characters that are in this movie, they all just fade away. And yeah, and that's kind of like the end of them. So that's it. Right now, there's a lot of articles going around saying it's not that good and it's, shy of what they needed. But if you compare it to other firsts, it's literally right in line to the average Marvel movie. So I'm not too concerned about it. It just really depends how it does for the next couple weeks. So I'll monitor it just because, this is what I have to do, for work. This is basically research for me. And knowing, are they going to make a number 2? If they make a number 2, then there's hope for issues 1, 2, 3, and all that kind of stuff to slowly go up in value again. But if this is dead and just they consider it a bomb and, Disney ends up losing like $100 million on this, all these characters gone, like done. They're not coming back. They'll see it as a failed experiment and that'll be it. So we'll see. I don't know if they'll have a number 2. The only way we'll know is if this ends up making a lot of money. I will say right now that it's not going to be the big hit that they're hoping. It won't be like this. Captain Marvel, $160 million budget, ends up $1.1 billion. It's not going to be a big hit. It'll just be a mediocre film, something like Ant-Man, right? $130 million budget, it made $519. So that's very profitable for them, right? That would be pretty good. Thor 150, made 450. Captain America on 140, just eked a decent profit on it. Not as much as the other ones, but somewhat of a good profit. This one, obviously, if you're in the 400s for a first, you're probably making a little bit of a profit. So, yep, that's kind of like my take. Right now, it's okay as long as it's not going to be a big hit money-wise for them. So we'll see what happens going forward. And I'll keep you guys posted if you care about these numbers at all. I like numbers. All right, have a good day.